Among the echoing footsteps in the company's hallways, no one knew the true identity of the man quietly pushing his mop. To them, he was just a janitor, but in reality he was the founder of this company. Today he was here to see who truly mattered. And for some, the cost of using power and arrogance to trample others would be steep. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more like it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. As the first light of dawn streamed through the large windows of the lobby, Andrew Carter stepped into the building with slow, deliberate steps. He held a mop in his hand and wore a simple navy blue jumpsuit. Once, he had walked these hallways with confidence, dressed in expensive suits. But now he looked like just an ordinary janitor. Yet, this was the company he had built from scratch years ago, the place he had grown with hard work and sacrifice. Every corner carried his mark, every success bore his sweat. But today no one knew who he was. Even the nameplates on the executive floor felt unfamiliar now. Taking a deep breath, he tried to suppress the emotions rising within him. He wrung the mop in his hands and silently got to work. For some time, he had been curious about how his employees treated lower-level staff. Rumors had been circulating through the company halls, whispering that some managers and office workers were disrespectful toward janitors and other low-ranking employees. At first, Andrew hadn't wanted to believe it. But a nagging doubt lingered in his mind. The only way to uncover the truth was to see it with his own eyes. And that was why today he had set aside his CEO identity, picked up a mop, and decided to step into the heart of the operation. As the sun rose higher, the office floors started coming to life. Employees trickled in one by one while Andrew silently mopped the floors. Some offered a faint smile or a polite nod as they passed, but most ignored him entirely. To them he was invisible, just another janitor. But the real moment came when Daniel Harris walked into the building. With his sharp gaze and confident stride, Daniel was one of the company's power players. Andrew had known him for years, but Daniel had no idea who was standing in front of him now. And that was exactly what Andrew wanted to see. How would a high-ranking executive treat someone he considered beneath him? Instinctively, Andrew straightened his back, but then quickly remembered his role and went back to wringing out the mop. Now the truth would reveal itself. Daniel Harris was the company's operations manager, known among employees for his harsh demeanor. Some called him a disciplined leader, while many believed his strictness often crossed the line. But for Andrew, hearing about it wasn't enough, he needed to see it for himself. As he bent down to wipe up a spilled cup of tea, he heard the sharp, fast-paced footsteps approaching from behind. For a moment, his instincts told him to lift his head, but he resisted. Daniel was already standing over him, arms crossed, making no effort to hide the disdain on his face. "Why is this place still dirty? Isn't this your job? Even janitors can't do their work properly anymore," he snapped. Andrew took a deep breath, keeping his head down without reacting. He swallowed the anger rising inside him. He wasn't here to argue or defend himself. He stayed silent and continued cleaning. But Daniel wasn't satisfied with that. He walked over to his desk, took a sip of his coffee, and kept glancing at Andrew with side-eyed irritation. He wasn't used to having his authority ignored, and the idea of a mere janitor dismissing him stung his ego. A few minutes later, without warning, he suddenly threw his coffee cup to the floor. The cup hit the hard surface, shattering, and coffee splattered everywhere. "Look at that. It spilled," he said, pausing before adding with a smirk. "But that's okay, someone's here for that, right? Hey janitor, let's speed it up." A few nearby employees chuckled, some laughing outright, others just watching in silence. In that moment, Andrew saw more than just Daniel's true nature, he saw everyone's. His anger was growing, simmering beneath the surface. But the time wasn't right yet. Taking another deep breath, he slowly gripped the mop and got to work. The storm was coming. By midday, an incident pushed Andrew's patience to its breaking point. Henry, the elderly janitor, was struggling to push the heavy cleaning cart down the hallway. He had been with the company for years, a quiet, honest man. But age had caught up with him and he wasn't as fast as he used to be. Just then Daniel approached him, coffee in hand. "Hey old man, still hanging around?" he said with a mocking smirk. "Maybe it's time you finally retired, huh?" A few employees chuckled. Some lowered their heads while others just stood by, silently watching. Henry hesitated for a moment. A flicker of sadness passed through his eyes, but he didn't say a word. He simply bowed his head and kept working. Andrew's anger was no longer controllable. Any doubt he had about the rumors was gone, he had seen the truth with his own eyes. But he wasn't just going to stand by and watch. It was time to act. Minutes before the end of the workday, all employees were summoned to the conference room. People filed in, curious about what was happening. Daniel and a few other executives lounged in their seats, assuming it was just another routine announcement. Then the door opened and someone walked in wearing a navy blue janitor's uniform. Andrew stepped forward, head held high, his stride steady and deliberate. All eyes were on him, but most didn't recognize him yet. His expression was firm, his voice unwavering as he began to speak. "Good evening, everyone. The reason I'm here today is that I needed to learn something important about our company's work culture. I didn't come here as a CEO, I came as an ordinary employee." A heavy silence fell over the room. Employees exchanged bewildered glances. Daniel's face had visibly paled. Andrew let his gaze sweep across the room before he continued. "My name is Andrew Carter." A few people swallowed hard. "I am the CEO of this company." The only sound that followed was the sharp intake of breath from those in the room. Now the real faces would be revealed. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Shock, panic, and fear were written across everyone's faces. A few shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others remained frozen in disbelief. Daniel's eyes widened, the arrogance draining from his face, replaced by growing anxiety. He seemed to sense what was coming, yet he clung to a sliver of hope, remaining silent. Andrew took a deep breath, letting his gaze sweep over the room. When he spoke, his voice was calm, yet it carried an unmistakable authority. "I came here today to witness firsthand how lower-level employees are treated. And unfortunately what I saw was deeply disappointing." The only sound in the room was the faint rhythm of unsteady breaths. "The way you treat people is not about their position, it's about your character. And today I had the opportunity to truly see some people's character up close." Then he turned directly to Daniel. "Mr. Harris." Daniel tensed involuntarily, his body stiffening. "There is no place for you in this company. Your actions go against our policies and, more importantly, basic human decency. Effective immediately, you are terminated." The entire room froze in shock. Daniel's eyes went wide, his mouth opened, but no words came out. He cast a desperate glance around, silently pleading for support, but no one dared to speak on his behalf. Andrew's unwavering stare pinned him in place, forcing him to retreat into silence. Andrew turned back to the rest of the room, his firm expression carrying the weight of a lesson that none would soon forget. "No one in this company will belittle another person. Starting today, I am implementing a mandatory training program for all employees." A few people cautiously lifted their heads in curiosity. "Anyone who wishes to remain here will learn what it means to treat others with respect. Because true power is not in your title, it's in how you treat people." A heavy silence filled the air. No one dared to speak. But one thing was certain, after today nothing would ever be the same. From that day on, the company became a fairer and more respectful place. And no one ever underestimated the possibility that a simple janitor might just be the CEO in disguise. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more like it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel.